on the hunt for meat.
You get this sort of hunting fever. When I'm up here, it's about sourcing food. It's about killing. In the end, it's about killing.
We turn a blind eye to the fact that animals die for our meat. The same goes for the environmental footprint of meat consumption. Meat is simply there, in huge quantities.
Some people are dumb enough to eat meat products 3 times a day while sitting in an office chair all the time.
I love the taste of meat. I love the smell of it, the texture. There's only one thing I don't love about it, and that's how it's made. Wow.
That's about to change. The steak, even the salmon fillet of the future, will come from a bioreactor.
We have this, mission for the planet.
I've been a master butcher for 35 years. My grandfather was a butcher. My father was a master butcher. For us, it's food.
You're all about the meat.
It's all about the meat. I'm not a trophy hunter. I eat the meat, I shoot it, I butcher it, and I cook it. With my own 2 hands.
The killing isn't a problem?
I grew up with that.
Does that make it easier?
I grew up with the idea that I get some benefit from it. It's not about the killing per se. I still like doing the slaughtering myself. I go to the farm, I stroke the bull or the cow and say, "Come with me," and then kill it. But I take care that it's slaughtered in the best possible way.
You mean pain-free?
Pain-free for the animal and that every part is used.
More and more people are enjoying eating game. It's antibiotic-free and doesn't involve factory farming. But hunting is controversial, even if it's crucial to wildlife management. This isn't so easy. Leaves quite an impression.
Here's the fawn, and here's the shot.
Shot right in the heart.
That's good. A shot to the heart.
That means it was killed instantly.
It didn't hear the shot, so that's it.
A quick death after a good life. Will this be the way we consume meat in the future? Is it a way to better meat? In the 4 minutes you've been watching this documentary, over 500,000 chickens, almost 10,000 pigs, and over 2,300 cattle have been slaughtered worldwide. We're willing to pay a high price to satisfy our craving for meat. Animal husbandry is responsible for 12% of global greenhouse gas emissions. 80% of all fertile land is used for raising animals and growing their feed. To make room for more, we cut down rainforests and spray pesticides. Meat production is the biggest threat to biodiversity, yet animal foods provide only 18% of the calories we consume. Meat eats up our land and everything that lives there. Humans and their domesticated animals make up 95% of the biomass of all mammals. Wild and marine mammals make up just 5%. It's time we reinvented the meat system. I like to eat meat from time to time, but would insects really be an alternative for me? Would I be willing to give up my steak? In San Francisco, where investors are constantly on the lookout for the next money-making tech revolution, people are busy reinventing meat. The city is home to the first 2 startups to receive a license for lab-grown meat from the US Food and Drug Administration. Founder Josh Tetrick has raised $267 million from investors.
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama on chicken wings and nuggets and hamburgers and outdoor barbecues before football games. I love the taste of meat. In the future, we can make meat without harming an animal, without tearing down a single tree, without using all these antibiotics, without emitting more carbon in the atmosphere. I think we're going to look back at today and think we were insane.
For the past 8 years, Josh has been developing chicken meat without using any animals at all. The product is not yet available on the market and can only be tested in a restaurant in Singapore or here at Good Meats Company headquarters.
Does it make you proud, Josh? Huh?
Yeah, I'm really proud of that, actually. Yeah,
V5.
I think we make really good chicken. Yeah, I think our chicken is really good.
Okay, I'm curious.
I used to be like touch and go on it. Like, I don't know. I'm not touch and go anymore. I'm like completely like enjoy. I have zero concern that you're gonna like it. I'm certain you will like it.
Maybe I'm a vegetarian.
You'll like it even more if you're a vegetarian.
I mean, is it safe to eat?
Unless you have a chicken allergy. You have an issue eating real chicken?
No.
Okay, you should begin that.
I should be safe.
You should be safe then.
It's very soft, even softer than I'd expect it to be.
Have a couple more bites. Try
but
that.
It's
Keep digging in.
it is very juicy. That's what I like about it. It's really juicy. It's nice. Yeah.
You mind if I get that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't have gotten so.
You'll find no chickens clucking or barnyard smells here, just a sterilized lab filled with stainless steel tanks housing collections of muscle cells. The meat here isn't grown, it's assembled from individual cells.
Inside of this, you have hundreds of millions of cells.
Already. That means in one portion of chicken, how many cells are in there?
Oh, it's billions. It's a lot, because it's all cells.
Billions of the same cells. Crazy.
The process was started with a single chicken stem cell, one that was immortal due to a freak of nature and would therefore divide an infinite number of times.
They're still dividing, like maybe these two are in the process of cell division currently, but you'll see it's just these single nuclear cells. And this is the foundation of the chicken. This is what it is, basically. This is our entire chicken product. We did not genetically modify these cells. They're what's called spontaneously immortalized. So they're able to grow indefinitely.
The chicken you picked, is that actually a special chicken or does it come from industrial breeding?
In this case, I don't think it was a special chicken. We've established processes to really fine-tune the probing of these individual cells. I think it will always become easier now to look at special chickens. So be it breed, be it how they were raised, maybe the age of the chicken could be impactful to the final flavor. So I think now we're in a better position to make those choices.
Meat is more than just like the pure, this is how it tastes. There's identities, there's story, there's recipes, there's that's what my grandma made me back in the day, don't you take that away from me kind of thing, you know, about meat. And that's a little bit different than a car. It's more fraught, right? It's more emotional, it's more intense, it's more, you know, you got that energy around it, so it can be a harder problem to crack.
Will people accept this artificial meat? And just how soon could they even buy it? Plant-based alternatives are already here. Germans eat 0.5 kilogram of it per capita per year. Their annual intake of meat is still much higher, 50 kilograms. But there's no doubt, veganism is booming. Swiss company Planted has a unique selling point. It uses no artificially derived additives in its products, which are called meat despite being plant-based. The company says consumers familiar with a meat-centric lifestyle need some sort of anchor.
It's been
I'm convinced these products have great potential, but there's a big communication challenge, not losing people along the way. We must start that process now and come up with a set of phrases, like meat, but better, or like animals, but different.
Since this spring, Lucas has been working on a steak made from soy protein, rapeseed oil, bean and rice flour, spices, vitamin B12 and beetroot. You can cut it easily.
Wow,
it looks just like a real steak.
Okay. Wow. Echt wow.
Incredible. I think it's great. How did you manage that?
Wie habt ihr das hingekriegt?
It's not 100% beefsteak yet, but it's amazingly close.
Ich find's erstaunlich nah dran. Danke.
Thank you. This really is the magic of fermentation, which takes the product to a whole new level.
There are flavors that I wouldn't expect to find in beef, but it also has that umami, meaty flavor. You've nailed that.
Das habt ihr getroffen.
And the bite?
It's rare to find a beefsteak that's so tender throughout.
Durchgehend so zart.
The steak gets its special flavor from various marinades and spices. Fermentation adds additional aromas and juiciness. The meaty texture is created in an extruder, a food processor which kneads, heats and cools the plant pulp. The details remain a secret.
We took a bit of a wrong turn somewhere in the last 50 or 60 years. At some point, we started eating and farming a lot of animals, which brought prices down. A lot of lobbying, a lot of market distortions with subsidies. And today, meat is insanely cheap and highly industrialized. And the problem is actually the 90 to 95% of the mass-produced meat that comes from this industry, and not the 5 to 10% of the meat from animals that are farmed sensibly. We want to offer people something that makes them just as happy when they eat it, but without the negative aspects.
These negative aspects are most visible in the meat industry's stables and slaughterhouses. Too often our food habits cause great suffering for animals. Factory farming is mostly legal, sometimes illegal, but always poorly controlled.
The reason why factory farms exist today isn't because those companies don't care about the environment. It's not because those companies don't care about animals. It's not because those companies are vindictive or evil. It's because that simply is the most efficient way of making billions of pounds of meat at the lowest possible cost.
I don't personally have an ethical issue with it. And so if their basic needs are being met, are they suffering? And is a pig that's outside having its tail chewed off by its neighbor, is that not suffering? Like where do you draw the line of what's suffering? And I think just saying being in close quarters is suffering is kind of subjective.
Because stables and slaughterhouses are tucked away, it's easy to overlook the suffering. Do you eat meat from industrial meat production?
Yes, I do. You got me. Yes, it's gross. I can't tell you why. When it comes to food, you have to make so many decisions. And if the product isn't there, you won't go to 4 other supermarkets to find it. Distribution plays a huge role when it comes to food.
We gotta come up with approaches that recognize that, we're really, really complicated, beings. And that makes us cool, but also really annoying at the same time. But we just gotta live with that.
Meanwhile, in the past 15 minutes, over 2 million chickens, almost 40,000 pigs, and nearly 10,000 cattle have been slaughtered, the vast majority in factory farms. Here in Swabia, some people are moving away from this traditional model of animal husbandry. The Meyer family lives on a farm in cooperation, as they say, with 300 cattle. They feed the animals and support them as best they can. The animals are no longer taken to the slaughterhouse.
We had a terrible experience in '86 with a bull that wouldn't let us put it in the transport trailer. He was so stubborn. There were 3 of us and we couldn't move him. We pestered him. We were pressed for time. He was due at the slaughterhouse and we couldn't do it. We had to fight with the animal for over 2 hours. After that, we gave up and said we couldn't keep going like this. What we were doing was animal cruelty. Why did we have to torture this animal? Why did we have to do this crap? I decided that my animals would never have to suffer like that again. Then we didn't do that again.
At the Meyers, animals are allowed to decide for themselves where to stay, who has offspring and when. Calves are not separated from their mothers, as is usually the case. From time to time, individual cattle are slaughtered to prevent the herd from becoming too large. Otherwise, the animals live their lives on their own terms.
Animals have enormous social needs, a pronounced social behavior. And that's exactly what you don't see in normal livestock farming, where the animals can't really live because they're always separated by age, sex, or use. A herd like this, where they're all together, it's unique in all of Europe.
The Meyers don't see their cattle as farm animals. They reject ear tags prescribed by the EU because they can cause tearing of the ear flap. The animals wear chips under their fur. Authorities are not amused and are withholding subsidies. The matter has been taken to court.
What's so striking about this herd is that their eyes are so alert. You have to look them in the eye. The expression in their eyes is crucial. Go to any large dairy farm where there are 1,000 cows. How jaded they are. They're slaves. They're not free. It's a completely different situation. Yes, you're free. You're our special cows. That's how dear you are.
It's like an extended family. We feel we have a big responsibility towards these animals and care for them a lot.
The animals are doing well. That's our biggest concern. We've sacrificed so much to push this through against all odds, and we'll continue to do so.
Why is this so important to you?
Because they're our friends.
Animal welfare is not much of a topic in the US. Meat is part of the culture's DNA. The average American eats about 120 kilograms of meat per year, the highest rate anywhere. Alison van Eenenam modifies the genes of farm animals to further optimize them for meat production.
That's one of the big advantages of, modern husbandry practices and breeding is that we can get the animals to market weight in 13, 14 months versus out on pasture they can take 3 years or so, and there's just that much more emissions per kilogram of beef when that's the case.
You wouldn't criticize the way animals in these huge barns and industrial ways are being held?
Well, I think there are pros and cons to doing it any other way. And so what is it that you value the most? Is it the animal suffering, in your words, or is it the environmental efficiency of producing food? Is that more important to you? Is it providing affordable food to people so that, for example, eggs are a really important staple for many people that are low income? So fine, that's a decision that's been made, but you have to face the trade-offs that come with that. So it's more expensive for people and it's a bigger environmental footprint.
Alison wants to outwit nature with the help of genetic engineering. Central to her plan is Reba the cow, who is pregnant with a genetically modified calf.
And we're allowed to do that? I mean, turn these animals into machines that become even more and more and more effective?
Well, would you rather they be less efficient?
Alison has been working on this for decades, developing techniques to manipulate cells, modifying bovine genes so that offspring no longer have horns, using gene scissors to modify sheep and goats so that their milk produces medicinal substances.
Just been fertilised, and
but she wants the ability to determine the sex of animals using gene editing to be her crowning achievement.
That's kind of how we do the editing.
Before she's shown us all the details, she gets a call from the vet. We rush out. The calf is about to be born. Oh, look, it's happening.
And would you expect any other changes? I mean, you never know when you interfere with a genome, do you?
I'm not expecting any other changes. So I know where this is knocked in on chromosome 17.
The point of the experiment is to eliminate chance in reproduction, to ensure only male calves are born.
Just size of it.
And for beef industry, what kind of
You would
advantage?
like, ideally for market animals that are going into the food supply, you would like males because they grow more efficiently. They're better feed conversion or fuel conversion ratio. They're kind of like a Prius relative to a great big truck or something. So they just are more efficient at converting feed to gain.
And that's not all. In countries like India, the cattle and water buffalo population is over 300 million. The animals are considered sacred. Slaughtering and eating them is frowned upon or forbidden. The problem? These cattle release a lot of methane. Ensuring that mainly dairy cows are born would greatly reduce emissions of the greenhouse gas. To understand why, we start with the father of the new calf, Cosmo. He's a genetically modified bull that, like all males, has both the X and Y chromosomes. The so-called SRY gene, which ensures that a fetus develops into a male, is found on the Y chromosome. In Cosmo, this gene was also copied to chromosome 17. This means Cosmo's semen passes on the coding for male offspring twice, thereby increasing the probability of producing males.
And that's a special calf. What will it be?
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
You're not sure if it's male or female
I'm not
on the outside?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, ideally it would come out with male bits and pieces.
Okay.
But it's science, so it could go the other way too. So you never know.
But it's XX, so
XX
it's actually,
for sure.
genetically, it's female.
Correct.
So let's stop for a second.
Yep.
The vet interrupts us to say the calf is too big, which is not unusual with artificial insemination.
She probably feels something big.
It's to be delivered by C-section.
So a cesarean cattle lady. She's checking us out. It's a big day. Big day for her.
Yes.
Sometimes biology ignores genetic manipulation. Will Cosmonaut, as the calf is to be called, really be male? We're 23 minutes into this documentary. According to statistics, millions of farm animals have been slaughtered worldwide. And in Germany, one deer has been shot.
We can never bring it back to life. This is the stomach. The bladder. And this is my little hunter's prize. The liver, kidney, and heart. Traditionally, those went to the hunter, while the meat and the rest of the venison would go to the master of the hunt. I utilize everything. I make venison liver sausage, Or we make a liver dinner with a nice Swabian fried apple on the side. That's the windpipe, and behind that is the esophagus.
These customs from another era force you to confront the fact that this carcass was once a living being.
There's nothing in the head. I wouldn't use the head of a cow or pig like I do with lamb, sheep, and goat, but here you get nothing from it. My grandfather used it.
So you're not using everything from nose to tail.
If I were to use everything, I'd be making Swabian brain soup.
That would be a delicacy.
A delicacy?
But not everyone likes it.
No, not everyone, but it's good.
The fawn weighed around 11 kilograms, yielding about 5 kilograms of meat. Legs, shoulders, minced meat or sausage, loin fillets, venison saddle. The scientists operating Good Meat's bioreactors aren't growing meat with tissue, tendons and fat. Instead, they are cloning identical stem cells, increasing their number every 2 to 3 days by a factor of 2 to 5. They then transfer this pulp of cells into even larger tanks, adding what every body needs to grow. Minerals, vitamins, fats, proteins and carbohydrates, all plant-based. To become meat, the cells still have to be shaped. They grow into a plant-based frame and there acquire their meaty texture.
The scale is so difficult. And what you can do on the research bench is sometimes unbelievable, right? And you can maybe make one perfect portion of steak, and other, different research institutes can do that across the world. But the ability to scale it to a size to be commercially viable, man, that is the really difficult part.
I think it's hard for all of us when you're in the moment to fully wrap our brains around that things can fundamentally change. But it always does, right? It was hard a year ago to imagine we could type in a query to ChatGPT and get an entire essay written. Right. Now we're frustrated the essay isn't, a 10 out of 10 instead of a 9 out of 10, It's hard for us to understand how quickly things can change, but it often does.
And sure enough, as we leave Good Meat, we see proof of this principle. Until a few years ago, these self-driving cars were technical pipe dreams and legal impossibilities. Now it's clear manually driving a car will soon be a thing of the past. Could this progress be transferred to the production and consumption of meat? Could we remain carnivores without causing animal suffering and environmental degradation? This biotech revolution is not just limited to meat. One startup wants to grow fish cells in bioreactors. Building on a trend here in California to combine big money with a big vision, IA Elfenbein founded Wildtype to save the world's salmon stocks.
Welcome. So great to see you. So glad you could make it.
I think a lot of us suffer from some level of paralysis when we see so much happening in the world that is sad, that is, disappointing, that can seem bleak for the future. And for me, this was an opportunity to actually embrace that as an extremely difficult challenge, as a way to take that and find inspiration, to get up every morning and feel like there's purpose. We have this, mission for the planet.
IA Elfenbein is a cardiologist and still works as a doctor on weekends to ground himself, as he says. He converted this former brewery, with its stainless steel tanks, into a lab. He's researching how to cultivate salmon cells using second-hand eBay parts. The project is fully up and running and employs 70 people. Aje expects his to be the first company in the US to sell culture-grown fish.
From here to Alaska, for example, is salmon country. And what we've seen over the last few decades is just how decimated the populations have become. Even near here in San Francisco, in the San Francisco Bay, there used to be so many salmon coming back every year, and the little rivers and streams, almost none come back now. The second reason is that even with fish farming, that has not been able to catch up with the increasing demand. And so we need a new source of seafood.
Salmon has an extremely good feed conversion. And yet, 40% of the fish, head, bones and innards, are thrown away. Culturing only stem cells would be more efficient, but, like with chicken meat, the technology to produce large quantities of these cultures has yet to be invented. According to Aje, using all the stainless steel tanks in the world for his project would cover just 1% of the global demand for salmon. The production of the culture media alone would require its own form of agriculture. Turns out being better than biology isn't that easy.
You're just taking out a part of biology, but you're leaving away lots of other parts of biology, like the immune system, for example.
That's exactly right.
Here.
The immune system, we don't have it here. Instead, we just keep it completely sterile. A single microbe in this will ruin the whole thing. And like bacteria will grow much faster than our salmon cells, for example.
The culture-grown salmon has not yet been authorized for consumption by US health authorities. I am therefore not allowed to try it. At least, not in front of the camera.
I mean, I can smell on it.
Yeah, of course, please, yeah.
Okay. I mostly smell now the sweet, juicy sauce here. So
but please, yeah.
The salmon didn't taste much like fish either. Presumably, fish is never this free of microbes. But that too is an advantage this salmon has over farmed or wild-caught varieties. Since you started watching this documentary, over 5,600 tons of fish have been taken from oceans worldwide. 1 ton every 3 seconds. Another half a ton has died as bycatch. Nobody likes the idea that animals should die so that we can eat, and yet the vast majority of people still accept it and consume fish or meat. Hermann Maier also lives with this dichotomy. Despite cooperating with his cattle, he eventually kills them. To spare the animals the stress and fear of transport and the slaughterhouse, and to make their deaths easier, Hermann Maier has invented a mobile slaughter box. It allows him to shoot a cow and leave it to bleed out in the middle of the pasture among the other animals.
You have to center yourself properly for this job. That's very important. I mustn't carry my feelings around among the animals. They would notice that. You stun the animal in a familiar environment without disturbing it in any way, by shooting it in the head at close range.
It's a shot from a very close range because the animals are very tame. We shoot it while it's lying down. It lays its head on its side, and the other animals often just stay lying down around it.
You open the carotid artery, the blood flows out, and the animal dies. And when the blood has run out, we close up the box and drive it to our slaughterhouse, where it's processed as usual. It's not a pleasant thing, to be sure. It's a necessary evil that has to be done. Someone has to do it, and that's the responsibility you have towards the animal. You can't leave it alone in its last hour, and you have to do it yourself, without it getting scared or stressed. I think we owe that to the animals.
Far up in the north of Finland, I came across a company that wants to feed the world's growing population without killing, animal suffering or pollution. Their product? Bacteria. Solar Foods has developed the perfect nutrient cocktail, a product they call Solein. It contains lots of minerals, fiber, B vitamins and fats. Above all, it's 2/3 protein, 3 times as much as meat.
The gift for the world is in addition to kind of a new harvest, new ingredient, and new species, is a platform technology to bypass the historic process of photosynthesis and bring systemic efficiency in the food system. Then again, ultimately, what we need to achieve in the mass and energy balance of food system is to replace the concept what we call the animal.
Now I used olive oil to stay vegan, and this Solein is like a thickening agent with makes the wine and olive oil together as a sauce.
But it doesn't bring in its own taste?
No, it doesn't taste anything. Brings nice color though. Yeah. That's it.
Pasi Vainikka has spent years researching how energy systems can be restructured to be sustainable. He's using the same approach to revolutionize the food system. The EU has provided his bacteria-generating plant 37 million euros in subsidies. His team is cultivating a microbe, Xanthobacter, that Pasi originally found in the Baltic Sea. What makes it special is that it obtains its energy by splitting hydrogen. Add carbon dioxide, oxygen and a few minerals and it multiplies rapidly. It means half a ton of brine can be harvested from this fermenter every day.
With this technology, we obtain an order of magnitude improvement in the efficiency of producing food.
You're really trying to be better than plants, better than nature, right?
We empower such biology and such nature that we haven't applied before. Our organism is completely natural, but it's different compared to those that we have understood, perceived as humankind. Our organism that we grow in the tank and is our product, we have found it from the nature. It is 2 micrometers in size. That type of life and food we haven't really used historically as humankind. The caveman understood the concept of rabbit or a berry because you could see it, you could feel it. But now we have small cells, and how they work is different because they don't use sugar or sunlight.
So far, the only authorized food containing Solein is an ice cream, sold in Singapore. If Solar Foods had its way, all egg and dairy products would become superfluous, as would eventually the whole notion of animals as food. At some point, the company wants to create Solein meat.
Fantastic. I like the filling is very, it's rich and very good. And the dough too. I mean, I wouldn't notice any difference.
That's the idea.
Solar Foods plans to build Solein factories anywhere in the world with easy access to green electricity and water. Places where its electrolyzers can be used to produce the food for the bacteria sustainably. Here at company headquarters, CO2 is extracted from the air using a direct air capture system. The goal, which these first steps make conceivable, is a sustainable circular economy that feeds the world.
And the rest, of course.
Ideas.
That's what it's about.
I would say 15 to 20 minutes. So we made like a vegan pancake.
And that's the future. No eggs anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think so. It's quite easy to use this as well.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll meet again in 20 years.
All right, yes.
How will the world feed itself then? With bacteria powder instead of eggs, milk and meat? Will cattle only be born as we need them? Bulls for meat production, cows for milk.
Hey, Mama.
We'll see. But for now, Alison's dream remains elusive.
Sound asleep.
The newborn calf is not male, as expected, but female. Sometimes genes introduced artificially are not passed on.
How disappointing is that?
Oh, it's science, yeah. I mean, I'm happy the calf is okay, and that always makes me happy to see that. And it's fun. She looks a lot like her dad, so, and that's, you know, it's 4 years now since he was born. So back to the drawing board and try again.
Based on my interviews and research, I don't think the world is ready to do without meat. Our desires and habits, the power of meat companies, all of this is difficult to overcome. But the planet simply cannot cope with producing meat for 10 billion people using traditional methods. I will eat even less meat in the future, and when I do, I'll make sure it was raised sustainably and that the animal's suffering was minimal.
Some people are dumb enough to eat meat products 3 times a day while sitting in an office chair all the time. That's just perverse. You can get by with less meat. And meat should cost a bit more too, of course.
But it would be better.
Much better.
Then over 6 million chickens, 115,000 pigs and 27,000 cattle would not have to die in just under 3/4 of an hour. Meat will remain, as will the pleasure of eating it. Animal suffering, one can hope, will not. Totally tender.
This is how meat should taste.
It almost falls apart. Mind if I eat all of this myself?
Nö, mir hört das andere.